Namaste. Today we are learning Adho, Mukha, Rajakapotasana. Say that 10 times, which is half pigeon pose. So what you're going to need is your blocks and a blanket, as well as if you would need any other additional support such as a chair or a stool to sustain you. I know that might sound a little intense to begin, but in actuality, it's what we use to modify our poses and to help us when we need to ease into something that's maybe a little bit more strenuous. This pose specifically is working through our hip flexors. And so we are working to open up in this central area. So to do that, I'm just going to roll my mat up a little bit here. And we're gonna begin in all fours. In this position, what you'd like to have is either pillows or your blocks nearby. You don't necessarily need your strap. And then let's fold up the blanket, or if you have a pillow that's a pretty decent thickness of height, you'd be able to utilize that underneath your hip. I'm gonna demonstrate it on my left side since this is the camera view. So to begin, we will start with the hands on the earth and your mat, and your knees will be slightly back behind you. Maybe a lot of us will consider coming into this pose from more of a plank position. Take the left knee just behind that left wrist. And then from that space, walk the right hip slightly forward and walk your leg back. The foot has a tendency to turn in, kind of how you see here. Now I'm going to take my foot and turn it out. So I'm pressing on the top part of my foot. I'm still pressing into my hands. And the other thing to note is your shin, depending on the sensitivity of your knee, is going to determine whether or not you can bring the shin parallel to the front edge of your mat. So ultimately, this pose, you will have your shin parallel to the front edge of the mat. And then I will also show you from the front angle. But if this is too strenuous, then you're gonna wanna keep that heel close towards the groin. So this is what it looks like from the side. And now from the front. So if we were bringing this shin parallel to the front edge of the mat, hands down on the ground, and the back leg is long. From this space, if this was strenuous in any way, shape, or form, then you would bring your heel in more towards the groin. From this view, you're able to allow your hips to come down and then lift up. This is where you would want to use your blocks to bring the earth to you. This engagement, as I'm lifting here to sustain myself, is from the lower abdominals and from engaging the thigh muscles and squeezing the glutes ever so slightly. As I alleviate that contraction, I tend to release myself lower into the asana. My hands will come down to keep the spine long in the pose, and each exhale will encourage me to lower myself down further to get a stretch from the back of my leg up towards the crown of my head, ultimately flat on the ground. Now remember, if your knee is pulled in, you're really working towards keeping the shin forward. So you're working on getting the stretch through the back of your hamstring here and the back of your glute, so that you can ultimately allow your hips to come all the way down to the ground. So you'd be very open in this space. And there's no rush to ever get into this space. Another concern in yoga is the shifting of the hips. So I'm gonna come back to the side view. And in this side view, I'm gonna actually come to a back view. So I'm gonna talk just a little bit louder. So I'm continuing to demo on the left side here. My leg is extended long, as you can see, and then the toe, you don't see it, but it's extended behind. But keep looking at the glute, okay? Normally I'm not one to have you look there, but in this example, it's very important that you notice the hips. The right hip needs to come forward and the left hip needs to come back so you can square the hips off. This way, when you're coming down, once you have that shin parallel to the front of the mat, your hips are remaining in a square position. One is not back behind the other. And able to get there easily is where you'll invite the use of your blanket and you sit on it. Or your block. You'll remain for 5 breaths and then remove and transition to the other side. You'll transition by shifting the weight down to come out of the pose if you're transitioning to a seated variation. Now the modified version of this, and those are a lot of different ways and modifications to help you ease into this pose. Now the modification will be to come onto your back. If you come onto your back here, we'll demo on the right now. So we lay down so the entire back is on the mat. Your left foot is going to cross over, well, I'm going to demo from the right. The right foot is going to cross over the left thigh. You're going to press the right knee away from you. And then this here alone, you're doing the work. You're bringing the lower back into the ground. You're rolling the shoulders back, so you're getting that opening if you were pressing your hands into the ground. Pressing the right knee away from you to open into the hip flexor. Flex the foot. You can draw the knee in, flex the foot here, or take it all the way up to 90 degrees. Remember to keep the lower back on the mat to still receive the same benefits of the posture that those from the hips forward are receiving as well. Another modification is to come up, place the left foot on the ground, hands behind you, lift your chest. 5 breaths. Everything should be flexed and active. And then once you're complete, you can release by slowly walking yourself backwards and then release the leg down. Windshield wiper to alleviate any sensitivity or tension that may have formed in the hips, and then return back and then offer to the other side. I hope this was helpful for you. I know it's a lot of information, but please, please, please share any comments, concerns, or issues that you may be having with this pose, so that way we can investigate it and learn together what we can do to modify and make this pose more accessible for you. I will be following up with a chair yoga version and wall version of these poses, and soon to come the aqua yoga versions as well. Blessings, my friends, and may you have a wonderful rest of your week. Namaste.